Joe Dante's Gremlins is one of the best horror comedies. It's full of incredible practical filmmaking and collaborations with Spielberg and Chris Columbus to create one of the greatest films of the 80s. So let's break down Joe Dante's Christmas classic, celebrating its 40th anniversary.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
Son of a bitch. He stole my life.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Welcome back to the Shot by Shot podcast, where we're talking one of our favourite horror films, a creature feature staple, Gremlins. This is one that I watched a lot as a kid, so it was always one of those like iconic 80s films for me. It was really ingrained into my mind for just tons of watches, and it's one of the big hits under Spielberg's production company, Amblin Entertainment, along with Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy that he started that production company with. And it's part of that insane run of the 80s that they had, just creating some of the best films of the decade, stuff like Back to the Future, E.T., The Goonies, all of which are really franchises that they've kind of preserved and not watered down like this. There's no bad sequels really in any of these, unlike a lot of Spielberg's other projects like Jurassic Park, Poltergeist, where they just kind of used that franchise until they drained it fully of money. Gremlins has kind of retained its status as a classic until now, and I think it's also just a really fun Christmas movie, a gateway horror for the family and horror fans will like. It's just full of practical effects used throughout the film. They're used so well at creating this like amazing horror comedy, and I think both 1 and 2 are really fantastic double feature, being Joe Dante's probably best work of his career in my opinion. So I think we all love it. Oscar, I'm going to throw it over to you first. What do you think of Gremlins?
Yeah, I think I've seen this film a couple of times. I think yesterday when I got to see it in the cinema. I think that may be my second time. I think that's maybe the second time I've seen it. It is just, I've forgotten how just entertaining it is as a whole. The comedy just holds up brilliantly. It really, really does. Practical effects are always great to see, and this film is just head to toe in just so many practical sets, and it just has so much charm to it, and I'm surprised at how hilarious it still is. It has so much going for it, and it's so cute, and just horror comedy is one of those really annoying genres that just hasn't taken off since it kind of peaked in the 80s and 90s, and now we're just kind of it's a dying breed of film, and you're the only ones you really get now the Scream sequels, and it's not effective and it's not funny, and I can't think of a time or any film that has really matched the level of the horror comedy that they were producing in those days. And this does feel like I hadn't realized that this was a Spielberg produced film when the kind of credits were rolling at the beginning. I was like surprised seeing so many names that I kind of recognized. Chris Columbus as well. Obviously got started writing, but it feels like that he's got that kind of Spielberg charm to it as well, this film. And it's just insanely fun time, and it's better than a lot of Spielberg's love films. To be fair, I'd take this over E.T. any day of the week. But yeah, and I need to rewatch 2 as well. That has been a while, but yeah, I absolutely love this film.
Yeah, it's my favorite Christmas film ever by quite a distance. Probably top 10 horror films ever for me. And I definitely agree it's a gateway horror. It took me, I think, 3 attempts when I was like 10 of my mum just trying to get me to watch it over and over again. And I never got past the scene of the gremlin in the microwave. Once that thing exploded, I don't know, I just couldn't watch it anymore. It's like a really, really dark film at times. You have like Phoebe Cates giving really dark monologues, and you also have gremlins like throwing knives at people. Old women getting ejected out of windows. It's just such a good time. I think we've not really reached the heights of horror comedy like that, because back in the 80s we were under like a proper renaissance of horror films, and when there's so much to parody, There's a lot you can use and adapt and make fun of. Now we get like bodies, which is a good film, but it's like it's mocking more Gen Z culture than it is any other horror films. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever get another film like Gremlins again. Just the craftsmanship behind it, the practical effects in this digital era. I don't know if we'll ever get anything like it again. But this film and Gremlins 2 really did break new ground for horror comedy. Yeah, they're just great films.
Yeah, it's really one of those films where you just think like they don't make them like they used to after you watch the first one of this. And I think Gremlins worked so well, and why it was such a cultural and kind of financial success is because it plays in between those lines of the genres of comedy, horror, even they kind of just fall into the also kind of like family friendly 80s Spielberg-esque films like E.T. Got the small town in Americana where it's like very normal lives. The sets feel so warm, replicating the feel of some of these other produced films. Like they're literally on the same like back lot as Back to the Future, where you can see the church where they go back in time, the big electricity scene in the finale, as well as just the kind of Christmassy holiday vibes that it brings. It's just kind of such a wholesome tone at the start of that film, contrasting what Joe Dante does with the second half of the film, as well as Chris Columbus writing it, who's kind of known for more of the family films. It's a good balance of people working on this, and it definitely feels a lot like Spielberg before it breaks into that classic Dante craziness when they bring in the larger than life elements that you do associate with Spielberg kind of creature features like Bruce the Shark and Jaws, or the ghosts in Poltergeist, or that behemoth of a tarantula and arachnophobia. Like they do go into the horror side in the Spielberg films. But this is one where you can really distinctively feel that it's still Joe Dante's picture. It's not one like Poltergeist where you're thinking, I'm not really sure which part's Spielberg and which part's Toby Hooper, which people always say that Spielberg ended up just directing that. But here, his style is so distinct, and you can really tell which parts he brought to the film. I think this is really his franchise. I don't think it would be the same at all without him. There's really no question between whether or what he brought to the table. Like that, as soon as that rampage starts, it's just pure Dante, and it's perfectly balancing horror and comedy. Did you grow up watching this?
No.
I did. Yeah, I did, but like I said, it took me a few attempts. I grew up watching this and Ghostbusters, which also took me a few attempts. And
Came out on the same day.
Yeah, I was about to say coincidentally they came out the same day. So horror comedy peaked in one day, I think. I don't think we'll ever reach whatever that day was in 1984. I don't think we'll ever reach again. But yeah, I grew up with this. I've always watched it. It's sort of a Home Alone where I watch it every year. I got it in so early this year that I watched it in like November. That's how desperate I was to watch this. Yeah, and Gremlins 2 I don't watch as much, and I didn't grow up with that. But that is just a pure comedy. There's like no horror really. There's some cool like body horror with the Gremlins, but that is all in on like cynical anti-consumerism, which is here in this film. But you can tell Joe Dante begrudgingly made that film, whereas this really does feel like him and Spielberg like made a passion project come to life.
2 feels a bit like the rage bait for Joker 2, except he still made a great film out of it.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it really reminds me of Tobe Hooper's second Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That
I need to see that.
Oh yeah, that's true actually.
Yeah,
I was more thinking it reminded me of the difference between Batman Returns and Batman Forever, where he kind of just dials the camp and everything up to like 100, even though it's still there in the first one.
I think it's quite funny that even a film like Gremlins, obviously, kind of is this really wacky film, and it still manages to say a lot about, you were talking about like pets and toys and consumerism as a whole, and there's just so many little things sprinkled in, like the racist neighbor is so stupid, and it just. Yeah, it's so funny. It's surprising. It surprised me when I rewatch it to find that there's actually a lot to grasp onto in a commentary sense. And like you said, too, just kind of dials that up. massively on the consumerism side of things. But yeah, it's brilliant, and it's just one of those comedy films that just gets wackier and wackier, and somehow just doesn't lose its comedic effect, and it just keeps on building throughout, and it is really brilliant.
It is pretty funny, but he's just like constantly insisting on like foreigners hiding gremlins in his truck, and well, before he knows what gremlins are, and then you get comments on Billy's like non-American car as well.
Yeah, and his TV as well.
Yeah. Somehow he's even more racist in the sequel as well, because they travel to New York to visit Billy, and he's annoyed at how many foreigners are in New York. Like he's annoyed at the guy that's driving his taxi. Which I don't know if it's a joke, because a lot of the times in that movie they kind of called back and made fun of this movie, but I don't know if that was on purpose.
I was just relieved he even shows up in the second one, because this one implies he gets like brutally ran over by.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
I just remember that he literally gets bulldozed.
Like brutally gets. It implies that he brutally dies to a bulldozer, but then he just appears being like as racist as ever in the second one. I don't think you can have a you can't have a Joe Dante film without Dick Miller, and I'm happy for it, because as like a side character, it really does steal the show, and it really does lean into the like microcosm of America that this suburb is, that the Gremlins are like wreaking havoc on. Like he's just part of the hyper capitalist, like consumerist culture that the Gremlins are like wreaking havoc on. And the dad as well, he's also like mildly racist at the beginning with the guys buying from.
The Chinese guy hasn't aged the best, and he's like caricature of it. It's
well, you know, it's 80s Spielberg. It's back in his prime of mild racism.
Temple of Doom. Oh dear.
Oh yeah, it's funny because this and Temple of Doom kind of ruined the PG rating, because they were PG, but they were also like entering on like X-rated stuff that they had to create PG-13, and it's another example of Spielberg kind of ruining it for everybody else again.
That's fair enough, though. This really, there's like a line about opening your wrists up. I remember in Phoebe Cates' monologue, it like really.
Oh yeah.
Some people are opening presents, and some people are opening the wrists. Is like an actual line of dialogue in this film. It's like randomly it'll go really, really dark, and I'm not surprised that that's to create a whole new rating system for it.
The scene where she's describing her father's death, Santa coming down the chimney, and he snaps his neck. I couldn't stop laughing. Oh dear.
And it's so Joe Dante, because he put it in just because like you don't know whether to laugh or not, because it's a serious thing. It's like basically a whole subplot in the whole movie that she's traumatized about Christmas, and then it's just that her dad gets stuck in the chimney and died.
Her character, like you said, is so funny. Is this like really unserious antithesis to the whole film, and oh god, and then like you said, she goes on that rambling monologue when he's just trying to ask her out on a date, and the poor guy is just stood there while she's rambling on about why she doesn't like Christmas.
They mock it in the second one as well. I'm pretty sure she like goes on a monologue, and he's like, "No, stop! We don't have time for this," or something. I can't remember. I've not seen it in a while.
Yeah,
but
the Gremlins are like fully in the rampage mode downstairs, and it like zooms in into like a Dutch angle into her, and like starts the dramatic monologue, and they just tell her to stop. That's such a great callback.
I need to rewatch the second one. Oh dear. You mentioned the microwave kill, the one where he gets like put in a blender. That is so good.
Do you like the like Ridley Scott birthing of like the alien eggs? It's so good. I forgot how good
that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, like when they're spawning in for the first time. The practical effects in this are insane. I'm pretty sure I read they were like 30 grand per gremlin. And they were checking people weren't stealing them at the end of every shoot.
I'd definitely steal Gizmo. I want a Gizmo.
Well, he was originally
this film.
Yeah, it was gonna be
Apparently, they
Spike.
hated Gizmo because every time he done anything, he'd break.
But before this film, like, is this the film that like started like the massive like furry toy epidemic in toys for Christmas, or was it before this? Because you see all like this, you see all like the modern stuff now, like the what is like Furbies and stuff like that. And it instantly just reminds me of Gremlins. And I don't know if that was like a thing before Gremlins, or if it was because of Gremlins that it started.
The furry toys was probably a Gremlins thing. Joe Dante made Small Soldiers in the late '90s, which
Small
was like
soldiers.
that was the concept. That there's like evil toys that came to life, and they like subverted it by the evil toys being the army, and the good toys were like monsters. Um, but yeah, I think furry toys are probably a Gremlins thing. I know there's like Transformers before that. But I think Gremlins even spawned some weird parodies of itself. I know Critters, which I've never watched, but that basically just sounds like Gremlins. Um, but I mean, they knew what they were doing when they made Gizmo and Mogwai. They're so marketable looking.
I guess Star Wars might have started it with Yoda. I don't know if they had like reached like peak, like just using that franchise for toys at that point.
I feel like characters
Obviously,
like
like
Boba Fett, they were really leaning into action figures and stuff.
Oh yeah,
I think they knew what they were doing with the
yeah.
sequels.
Yeah.
definitely.
Gizmo's just the cutest though. They like had a go at him
Yeah,
with that. He's designed to sell toys, even if that
he
wasn't what
is.
intended is. The little noises he makes are really good. The half Mogwai, like half English of it is really it's like gibberish,
Bright
but it's
light.
really like still bits of English.
So
Did you
funny.
see Howie Mandel had to re-record the noises for each language? Like he would go in and kind of do it in a German like noise or like a Japanese noise, like so that the different countries could still kind of understand the small bits of the language, even though it was actually like gibberish.
That's quite good, actually.
I forget
Um,
every time that was Howie Mandel, and it really disturbs me every time I remember because he does not look like a guy who would voice Gizmo. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a
That's
weird
just weird to
cast.
me. Yeah, really weird.
Yeah, I feel like
um,
that's one of the things that makes it distinctly feel like the '80s because apart from like just like the town and the slightly dated stuff, none of the characters are really recognizable for like what they've done after it, bar a few like character actors,
wait,
and
Howie
Corey
Mandel
Feldman, of course.
is that the America's Got Talent
Yeah,
judge?
Yeah, it is.
That's crazy.
He's also a voice actor and other stuff, but
yeah.
can't off the
Phoebe
top of my
Cates
head
kind of
remember what
just
it is.
fell off the face of the earth after the Gremlins films. I don't really remember
Mm.
seeing her in
She
anything
done.
more
And
recent.
Zach Galligan,
Yeah.
that's the lead in both of them. He done like bar a few like horror cameos after this. He pretty much done nothing else.
Oh,
Corey
she was in
Feldman's
Drop Dead
really the only
Fred.
one that's recognizable because
Yeah,
he's in like every major studio film in the '80s.
Who's this?
Corey
no
Feldman,
recall.
Oh yeah.
you would know his
Do
face.
you know what? I was gonna say I was gonna bring that up because I was like I just recognized that kid everywhere and I was like he's in Stand By Me and I could not remember his name for the life of me. But yeah, he had such an incredible career as a kid.
Hmm.
That's
He
insane.
done Friday the 13th and this in the same year. So I think this was like his breakout role, pretty much.
Mm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, he was he was one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 90s ones. That's crazy.
yeah. He had a 3 year run where he did Gremlins, then Goonies, then Stand By Me, which is insane and probably set him for life. They are like 3 classics in a row. But it
Mm.
seems like even he, um, as an adult, isn't getting any work. So it's a bit of a weird film in that regard. Phoebe Cates in Drop Dead Fred, which is a childhood banger as well. That is a weird film. Have you not seen Drop Dead Fred?
No, I've never even heard of it,
No
I
idea
don't
what it is.
think.
Everyone at school used to watch it and quote it. It's like an imaginary friend that was really rude because he appeared to her while she was an adult. That's worth a watch. It's probably aged terribly though. I've not watched it in a while.
It seems like the type of film to have aged horribly. That's quite funny, actually. Oh dear. What has Zach Galligan been in? He was in one of the Hellraiser films.
He's in it for about 2 seconds. It's just he dies in like this room. It's like this like club that gets killed all at once, and he's in it for like 2 seconds.
It just looks like he's been in slop, just horror slop. Even as recently
Yeah,
as
very much.
2019, he's been in slop.
Jeez. It's insane just the range of actors and like child actors and teen actors in kind of just any time really that just don't get off the ground when they're an adult. Like they just want you as a child and nothing else. And who was the other day? There was a name. Dakota Fanning's kind of the same. When I was watching The Watcher, I was like, you don't see her much as an adult, but as a child, she was in some insane amount of projects.
Wasn't she nominated for Oscars?
I think she was. I'm trying to think. What for though? Man on Fire?
I think so.
What else was she in?
I may be wrong though. Edward Furlong's always the one I think of. Is like the 80s, 90s kid that just. I mean, I think he had a lot of problems growing up, but I think Corey Feldman just stopped getting work. It wasn't really a case like that.
Dakota Fanning got a nomination for I Am Sam.
Oh, was it I Am Sam?
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh dear.
There's a whole episode of that film.
Oh dear, that is quite funny.
I guess that Haley Joel Osment's done well for himself after Sixth Sense and AI. He's had a bit of a career renaissance. He's in The Boys briefly, and he's in Blink Twice. He's pretty good in Blink Twice. So I don't know if he's going to be in more stuff, but he was in Tusk, which I've not seen, but I've heard a lot about.
Tusk.
Yeah.
Great film. But it's not great, it's fine.
It's not a good
It's
film.
not bad. It's not bad. It's quite funny.
I think it might be Kevin Smith's worst. Not gonna lie.
Wait, who's worst?
Kevin Smith.
How many of his films have I seen? I'm trying to think. What else has he done?
Clerks.
Not seen it.
Jane Silent Bob.
Yeah, Tusk is the only film of his I've seen. It is quite funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've just avoided that film because I've seen all the worst of it, all the clips. So, yeah.
It's not even bad. It's just a comedy, pretty much. It gets talked about as if it's like really gory and like really low down, like deep horror, but it's pretty much a comedy.
Yeah, it is. Did you guys see that they originally wanted Stripe and Gizmo to be the same character, but Spielberg intervened and they was like, no, we want it to be different characters. And I'm kind of glad that was that way, to be honest, because the dynamic of having Gizmo there works so much better than him being killed off. That's quite funny, actually, to imagine just Gizmo just ceasing to exist halfway through the film.
Yeah, that was it.
You wouldn't get the scene where he drives the car through the shop and nearly kills the dog.
That was a very important intervention. I don't think it would have been as popular if Gizmo is the face of the franchise. Spike isn't. Gizmo is. I remember the second film. The poor guy is getting it's another level of torture because there's hundreds of gremlins, and the entire film it'll cut to a scene with Gizmo, and he's being thrown around or thrown down a vent or being I think in this film he has darts thrown at him. But
that scene, Gizmo being bullied is so sad. The darts is awful.
But luckily he gets revenge at the end, and that effect at the end of Spike melting is insane.
Oh, it's so good. And Gizmo driving around the rear projector, that's so funny. Oh dear. The dog acting as well was crazy in the film. What's the name of the dog? I forgot the name. Does the dog even have a
I
name?
can't remember.
It definitely has a name. I just remember the
The
woman
one
being horrible.
that old woman, her death. That's the one. That's one of the scenes that just sticks out to me the most, where she goes up really, really quickly, and I forgot that she just launches out the house.
Yeah, she's
It just
literally
goes absolutely miles.
she's literally Scrooge, and they have her die like a horrific death.
Yeah,
It's pretty good.
she
That's like
is.
the only death where I was like, yes, I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
There's that scene in the police station as well that's good, where they don't believe all the hysteria. I don't know, that reminded me of like classic like 50s
Jaws.
sort of film. Yeah, Jaws as well, but even like going back to the 50s where you'd have like mass panics over like, I don't know, fake alien invasions and stuff, because Gremlins are like a pre-existing thing. Joe Dante didn't invent the idea of
Mm.
Gremlins. They're,
It's a road
they're
outfit.
It's almost like a Cold War spy type kind of commentary when they're talking about it on the news. That's what it seems like anyway. That kind of what has happened, and the kind of fear that was going around at that time anyway. But yeah, it's still hilarious.
Well, yeah, they were invented originally to like cover up mechanical failures in planes, which I guess sort of goes back to his dad's obsession with inventions and how they're always like failing. There's that entire scene where his mum, where she's trying to just peel an orange and make orange juice, and it explodes. There's a lot of like consumer commentary in this about technology, because again they take over technology, they start driving bulldozers, and it's smart to reinvent Gremlins like that, turn like a piece of folklore that no one really knows about, and now when you say Gremlins, no one thinks of anything but the film Gremlins. So that just shows how well Dante did to make them both like entertaining and as an actual threat in the film. Because you'll have scenes dedicated to them attacking people, but then you'll also have like them in a bar, where I think is where they really struggled with the animatronics and puppets, because you just have a full bar with really dark lighting to cover up all the people maneuvering them. And that's one of my favourite scenes in the film, when they're all drinking and throwing bottles at Phoebe Cates, and then
Yeah,
she
same.
eventually escapes.
Yeah, there's so many visual gags in there and references. Like there's the gremlin that's basically like Humphrey Bogart. He's like pretending to be in a noir film, smoking a cigar.
Oh yeah, that scene. All the different ones in the bar. I've forgotten about that. Oh, that's yeah. The scene in the cinema as well, where they were watching Snow White and singing along, is brilliant. And when they're trying to put the film stock into the camera as well, and trying to get it play, that's so good. But yeah, one of the films that won't get tired of, like endless small references to things, kind of 50s cinema and things like that is brilliant.
Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
scene
Those are great.
after the cinema bit. It's like the only bit in the film that I think has aged weirdly. I don't know if you remember it. They're all like leaving, they're walking down the street, and I think it's supposed to be stop motion or some kind of
Yeah, it
visual
is.
effect, and it looks really weird. That's like
It does.
it's the only bit of the film that took me out of it, but I sort of respect how ambitious it is to have like hundreds of gremlins out in the open like that, because most of the time they're in really confined spaces with like dark lighting. But in that scene, Dante just goes for it, and it is kind of cool looking, even if it looks really dated.
I think there are more moments than just that scene that are stop motion, because I noticed that yesterday when I was watching it, like obviously like, the frame rate or some of the like it's even just frames in just a random scene just seem slower, that they use stop motion for that. But no, it is to be honest, for me, I just thought it was quite cool rather than seeing it as a hindrance. And it is crazy. I was like, I was kind of surprised when it kind of happened that that's what they were going for. But no, it is really, really great, and they're sticking to the practical. That's the commitment, and that's what I admire. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I prefer that over to CGI like any day pretty much. I love even the
Mm.
jankiness of stop motion because it's just cool the fact that they've done it practically. And that's another thing that would like you just couldn't do it again if you recreated this movie today or made a sequel. Like it just the brilliance of the practical filmmaking in this with the puppetry, the stop motion, the animatronics, which it's always better than CGI in my opinion, even if it does look imperfect like it does in that stop motion scene with all of them. And that scene or the bar scene and everything must have cost like so much because like you were saying, I think the animatronics are like $90,000 or something in today's money. So like there's so many gremlins in that scene. I don't even know how much money probably just went into that one moment. But I think they tried to do it with monkeys at first, but whenever they would put like suits on the monkeys, they would just panic and freak out and like shit everywhere.
That sounds terrible. I would
Because
not want to be
there's a
Phoebe
scene
Cates.
in the second one as well where like monkeys won't even come out of their cages because they're scared of like the gremlin puppets.
Yeah, I think in that bar scene, you can see some to create like there's more there. You'll have like gremlins hanging off the ceiling, but they're clearly just like dolls that don't have any built-in movement
Mhm.
to them. It is really clever how they shoot some of the scenes to create like space.
I feel like the movie in general is kind of throwing back to that 50s B movie concept as well, because there's a lot of stuff in here that you kind of just have to accept, like the rules of them, like eating after midnight or the water
Midnight.
as well.
When does it end, man? When does it
Yeah,
end?
Oh
Anything is
yeah,
after midnight.
they make fun of that again in the second one though. That like there's literally a whole
yeah.
discussion between two characters like, well,
Mhm.
when does midnight end?
Oh dear. Well, I like meta commentary. It's hard to master, but it seems that meta commentary in the 80s and 90s, like we said, with horror comedies, is just they perfectly matched in. And then nowadays we get stuck with films like The Fall Guy, who couldn't tell the right from the left, and it just ends up being the most unfunny and annoying and insufferable dialogue you've ever heard. And that's the state of meta commentary now, other than the Scream films, which have seemed to just have got a handle of it. But yeah, it's a dying breed of comedy that yeah, just people just can't seem to grasp. But yeah, it's so funny that I just can't stop thinking about the After Midnight thing when I'm watching it. It's like it's so
Mhm.
stupid.
It's also snowing, and all those gremlins walk over the snow. Like, wouldn't that technically get them wet as well?
I've never even thought about that. I guess you're right. Yeah, you're just not supposed to think about it, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a substance. You kind of just because of the concept of the movie, you just kind of ignore it and accept that it's happening in a movie.
um,
I mean,
yeah, I think Modine means devil in Cantonese.
I mean, a demon. I think, yeah. Which it doesn't look like a demon, but you know, when they get wet, they definitely look like demons. I know it's not. It's not wet, is it? They have to eat. The wet duplicates them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm forgetting the law.
yeah. I love how the second. I'm not to go into the second one, but like like the meta-ness of it just becomes even more like they kill a critic that hated the first one in it. Um, there's even a moment again going back to the theater scene where like the gremlins like break the film reel and it goes out of the movie and cuts to the real world where they're watching Gremlins 2 in a theater and the gremlins want to go and put on Snow White and the levels of meta is just insane. They go in this franchise and I really do think the second one should be kind of talked about on the same level as this because I don't think it does. I do think it's one of the best kind of studio sequels of its time, and it doesn't really get generally held to the same level as this. And I'm just so glad that Joe Dante managed to like make both of these because it's just the perfect balance of comedy and horror. Like we've been saying, he's really the heart and soul of the franchise. And yeah, it's even like he's the Twilight Zone movie like showed perfectly why he was kind of perfect for this style of comedy and horror.
Yeah, that Twilight Zone movie is weird because there is a Gremlins section, but obviously it's not
Yeah.
Dante. It's George Miller who does fit it to effects. It's a plane crash, so he knows what he's doing with vehicles. But yeah, mixing. I'm not surprised Joe Dante got like Spielberg's attention from the Twilight Zone film, because his section in that is amazing, and he just carries it on into Gremlins with the effects. So yeah, if there's one positive about that film, that Twilight Zone film, is that we probably got Gremlins out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, he nearly hired Tim Burton to do Gremlins, but he had
Yeah,
never
the
done a
short
feature,
films.
so he went with Joe Dante.
Did he have a short films about Gremlins? Was it Tim Burton? I'm pretty sure it's something to do with. Oh no, yeah, I think it was just that's why Spielberg noticed him, was because of his short films, and
Yeah.
that's why he wanted to do it. But apparently, I just love scrolling through trivia stuff. That the original script, because it went through loads and loads of drafts. The original version had the Gremlins killing the dog and cutting off the mum's head and tossing it down the stairs.
As if he
That
hadn't
is.
traumatized enough children watching this.
I know, but obviously Warner Bros. And Joe Dante stepped in. They wanted it to be more family oriented. That is pretty hilarious. But I'm kind of glad for once that a studio has stepped in and said, maybe we want to make this a bit more PG, because I think it works. It works a lot better, a lot more in its favor. The one of Phoebe Case's screams in the bar scene was real, because a cockroach had crawled up her leg.
That was a good actor, wasn't it?
Yeah, that scene where she's just constantly pouring out all the drinks is so funny. I'm trying to remember all the different gremlins that are in that bar scene.
There's a poker table.
There is a poker table.
There's a female gremlin.
Yes.
Spike's girlfriend. It's the second one though where they really ramp it up with the gremlins.
Oh,
like
the spider.
Yeah,
I always remember the spider one.
There's a spider gremlin. There's a smart gremlin which has a gun. There's a bat gremlin.
The smart gremlin's my favourite of the whole.
Gremlin's
of
my
both of them.
favourite, yeah.
Yeah, they basically do the
well.
Scooby-Doo scene where they're just drinking random chemicals and they just go crazy with kind of variations of them.
That small kind of POV kind of gremlin shot where he's running towards him with a chainsaw is so good when he comes out like out that wardrobe. That bit's brilliant.
There's a gag in this that's like, it's really hidden in the background, but it's one of my favourites, and it's when the dad's at the convention for like I don't know, it's like a convention for inventions, and he's on like the phone booth, and in the background you just see a time machine like being shown off, and then it cuts away and cuts back, and when you cut back, like the time machine's gone, and there's just like a mark on the ground where like people are like confused where the time machine's gone.
Yeah,
but it's like such a small thing.
Yeah, I noticed some cool background stuff. If you just watch in the background of like, the forefront of like in the bar scene, the attention to detail, because all the gremlins are still like interacting with each other in the back, and then there's a scene when the mum is attacked originally in the kitchen. She like throws a knife at a gremlin, and you can still see it like twitching and freaking out in the background. And it's the first time I noticed that when I watched it again. There's some really like in your face gags, but some really good subtle gags in this and the second one. And I've just read that Dante likes the second one more, which I wasn't aware of. He seems a bit confused by the success of the first Gremlins, by his own admission.
Yeah.
I think he liked being able to like make fun of his own film in the second one and really run away with the bigger budget it had. But I think they both complement each other really nicely. I can't imagine watching the second one without seeing the first, because it's like blatantly parodying the first one. But I'm probably going to rewatch 2 now, because after talking about it, it is.
Yeah, I'm going to rewatch it when I get back. I think it just it's for some reason just spider-related things just stick out in my mind, because I'm really scared of them, and I just remember that I can't remember when the first time I watched it. Yeah, I think it was only maybe like 5 or so years ago. But yeah, it's even better than I remember the first one, especially. And I'm so happy that it is, because it is such a wildly good time.
Yeah, I think he was a bit annoyed about working under this kind of studio system, and he used that film to kind of vent about it, and it's such good commentary added into that, because it's like Billy goes to work as an artist over this like comically evil like boss and company who doesn't really give him much creative freedom, so he just kind of goes ham into that commentary, kind of working in studio films. So yeah, it's a really good commentary, I think, and it's honestly pretty close to being my favorite of the two. It's thank God they got him to do it, because I just it wouldn't be the same without him.
Yeah, that was probably a scenario where if Dante knew it was going to be made anyway, he wouldn't want anyone else doing it. I think that was the same with the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, but unlike Gremlins, that just got ran into the ground by the studios.
Yeah.
It's a miracle Gremlins hasn't been touched much. I know there's like a kids' TV show, but I don't really care because it's for like 5-year-olds. So no one cares. No one's gonna watch it, and it has been like babyfied. But yeah, I could happily go the rest of my life with there not being another Gremlins film, because it doesn't need touching.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I part of me kind of wants to see another one, but knowing how everything kind of those kind of legacy sequels go nowadays for the majority, and especially because if they keep it practical and attach a good direct, wait, Joe Dundy's still alive, isn't he? I'm assuming
He is, yeah.
I think
Get
he's
him on
technically
it.
still working, but he's just like really low budget horror movies.
On it, man. That'd be so good. Or just get Spielberg on it. That'd be so good.
Yeah, his most recent film was 2018, but it does look from the poster like really low budget horror films.
Damn.
He did the Wailing, which I want to watch, 'cause I think is that a werewolf film?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Korean horror film.
The Howling. Yeah, I did get mixed up. Yeah, the Howling. It's a werewolf film, I think, and they're really good. He did that before Gremlins, actually, so maybe that's what got Spielberg's attention.
I think it was Piranha that he's seen as well, because he done the first other original
I forgot he
version
did
of it,
Piranha. I've not seen
which
that.
is kind of like a rip-off of Jaws, so it probably did catch Spielberg's attention.
True, yeah. I've just heard that's bad, so I've never watched it, but
I've seen the sequel, which is because James Cameron made it, but technically made it. It's awful though.
I can't believe you just admitted a Cameron film isn't very good.
Well, it's not. It's technically not his film. He got fired, and they wouldn't remove his name. So.
Technically not his
Same
film.
copium that people use with Michael Mann, where they say that his like TV movie isn't his debut.
Oh, that is a bad
It's
film.
not his. What is it? What, The Keep? Is it The Keep?
Yeah, don't people try to like scrap that from his filmography and say
It's
that
not
Thief
that bad.
is
It's not good, but it's not bad. It's kind of cool.
I included it as my first film when I went through them all. It's cool, but it's really boring from memory. It has cool ideas, but yeah, I think if like it's just weird seeing Mann do like a horror sort of central film. But Dante, looking at his filmography, I'm missing more than I expected, and I need to watch some, because Piranha, The Howling is a werewolf film, and there's not enough werewolf films even now. We're getting The Wolfman, but that's technically a sequel or remake. And he did a film called The Second Civil War, which I don't know anything about, but I am intrigued because I think it's a comedy.
Yeah, Spielberg needs to hand out some money to his friends, because a lot of them are struggling.
Yeah, even Spielberg's doing like legacy sequels now, so maybe he should. Well, he's going back to a UFO film, so it could be like the prime 80s again, hopefully. I've seen news about the casting of that. I can't remember who's in it specifically, but it seems like he's building a good modern cast for that UFO film.
Josh O'Connor,
Yeah.
Emily Blunt, someone else who I've forgotten. There's a
Yeah.
few names attached to it already.
Josh O'Connor, I always like seeing.
I love Josh O'Connor. He is great.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like precious about people remaking or doing sequels to some of these if he still owns the rights to Gremlins, because I know there's always talks about Back to the Future getting remade. So like if that can get remade, then there'll probably be a Gremlins sequel at some point.
Well,
If that's
they're about
possible.
to destroy Lord of the Rings, so nothing is sacred. I'm afraid.
True.
Probably will get a Gremlins.
They've already destroyed it. Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Awful.
Well, Warner Bros. Has the trademarks to Gremlins, so I'm assuming Warner Bros. Can just do what they want, and hopefully they leave it until they can get a director that, if they are going to do it, will use practical effects. Because you can't do a Gremlins film without practical effects.
True.
Yeah, CGI Gremlins. Oh, that'd be
Weird
rough.
nonsense, yeah.
That's
Terrible.
horrid.
Got any last comments on Gremlins?
Just watch it. Is all I've got to say. Every Christmas.
Yeah. Watch it with your family. Absolute
You have to watch
banger.
it at Christmas.
You do.
Because Black Christmas is really dark, and that's another Christmas horror. You might not want to watch Black Christmas every year. That is a downer. Gremlins, though, if you're looking for like a fun horror fix, watch that in December.
I forgot about the It's a Wonderful Life reference as well when he's running down the town, and they also show the film as
Yeah.
well.
It's playing on the
I
TV
don't-
that she's watching.
Yeah, it's also playing on the TV and it like changes the color, and I don't know if that was on purpose. It's like some weird obscure meta reference.
It's probably deliberate. I think most is very carefully made. Gremlins, like it's probably a deliberate reference.
Yeah, that was Gremlins. Let us know in the comments what you thought or what you think about Gremlins. Have you seen Gremlins 2? Also let us know about that. Let us know what you thought, and we'll be back next week for Queer.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
One of the worst performances of my career, and they never doubted it for a second.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble.
You just gotta keep living, man.